The roar of a chainsaw outside yanked me out of sleep. At first, I figured it had to be a dream, until I heard the sharp snap of wood breaking apart. My gut dropped. I rolled to the window and froze. There she was, Karen Whitmore, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood HOA, standing with that smug look while a crew ripped apart my wheelchair ramp. She wasn't just having it taken down. She wanted to put on a show. I threw open the window. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Karen barely glanced my way, smirk plaster on her face like she'd been rehearsing for this showdown forever. "Oh, look who finally woke up. Took you long enough, seeing as you don't have a job or anything important going on." She waved at the guys. "Make sure you tear out every last bit. Can't have that eyesore ruining the way our neighborhood looks." Eyesore. She meant the only thing that let me get out of my house without needing someone to carry me down the damn stairs. "You don't get it." "Oh, I get it just fine." Karen's voice oozed fake concern. "You've been faking this wheelchair thing for months. I saw you using your arms just fine the other day. You want us to think you're completely helpless? Please." She crossed her arms. "It's pathetic. You're milking sympathy from hardworking people with this sob story, and the HOA's not going to let you keep pulling that stunt." My jaw locked, so tight it felt like my teeth might crack. I'd heard this crap before, but hearing it from her, while she literally destroyed the one thing keeping me independent, felt like getting slapped. "My disability is none of your business," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "What is your business is that what you're doing is illegal. That ramp was approved, permitted, and you don't have the authority to touch it." Karen rolled her eyes. "Spare me. HOA rules trump whatever paperwork you think matters. And guess what? We voted. The neighborhood's behind this. It's gone." A vote? That was laughable. Karen's votes usually involved her and her two HOA buddies scheming behind closed doors, then acting like it was some unanimous community decision. I turned to the workers, two guys in safety vests, clearly uncomfortable but still pulling the ramp apart piece by piece. "You might want to stop," I told them, "because if I take this to court, you're going to be part of the lawsuit." Karen laughed hard, sharp and mocking. "Legal action? From you? What are you going to do? Submit a complaint form?" "Seriously?" She stepped in closer, eyes lit up like she was enjoying every second of this. "This is my neighborhood. My rules. You're just another guy taking up space." I met her stare, face blank. She had no clue. No clue who I actually was. No clue what I was capable of. No clue her whole world was about to come crashing down. That afternoon, once Karen and her wrecking crew had packed up and gone, I sat in my living room, working to keep my rage in check. Claire, my assistant, stormed in, her face just as fired up as I felt. I called the city. She snapped, dropping a thick stack of papers on my desk. "They confirmed everything you told me. That ramp? Totally within code. Karen had zero authority to do what she did. Not that she gives a damn." I let out a breath, massaging my temples. "She thinks she's invincible. Well, she's in for a wake-up call." Claire handed over an envelope. "This just came from the courthouse. Thought you'd want to see it." I tore it open, scanned the pages inside, and smiled. Karen's eviction notice. Turns out, while she'd been busy bullying the neighborhood with her bogus HOA rules, she'd also been dipping into the HOA funds. Thousands gone, all under the fake label of community projects. But the city caught on. Now she was looking at serious charges. And the kicker? The judge handling the case was me. I chuckled, slow and low, shaking my head. She seriously messed with the wrong guy. Claire smirked. "So what's the move?" I leaned back in my chair, still grinning. "We play it straight. By the book." A few days later, Karen marched into the courthouse like she ran the place, totally clueless about the storm coming for her. Didn't even glance at the case file. Too busy mouthing off to the clerk about her useless lawyers. "This is absurd," she scoffed, adjusting her high-end sunglasses. "I am the HOA. I make the rules. How the hell can I be sued by my own board?" The clerk gave her a tight smile and nodded toward the courtroom doors. "You want to head in? Judge will be out in a moment." Karen gave an over-the-top sigh and strutted in, heels echoing across the floor. She didn't even glance at the bench until the bailiff spoke up. "All rise for Judge Carter." She turned, and all the color drained from her face. I stepped up behind the bench, face unreadable. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore." For the first time since we'd crossed paths, Karen Whitmore was at a loss for words. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The blood had drained from her face so quickly, I half thought she might hit the floor. But no, Karen wasn't the fainting type. Instead, she pulled herself upright, squared her shoulders, and tried to slap on that usual smug smirk. This has to be a mix-up, she stuttered. There's no way you're the judge. I clasped my hands together, voice steady. Mrs. Whitmore, today's hearing concerns your alleged misuse of HOA funds and multiple counts of fraud. I skimmed the file in front of me. Evidence also shows a slew of resident complaints about your abuse of authority, excessive penalties, and even intentional damage to private property. I met her eyes, including mine. Karen gave a strained laugh, her eyes scanning the room like she might find an escape hatch. Oh, come on, this is absurd. There's no way you can be unbiased here. Total conflict of interest. Is your attorney planning to file a motion for recusal? I asked. Her lips pressed into a tight line. No lawyer. She probably thought she could just charm or bulldoze her way through this. Not today. I don't need an attorney, she scoffed. This whole thing's a sham. I'm the HOA president. It's my duty to enforce the bylaws. These folks just hate being told what to do. Claire, seated in the crowd, let out a soft chuckle. The mood in the room started to shift. Karen could feel the walls closing in, and it was dawning on her that her usual tools, bullying, twisting the truth, flat out lying, weren't going to save her now. Let's review the evidence, I said, flipping through the file. Over the past 2 years, you've issued over $50,000 in fines for things like mismatched curtain colors, slightly off-spot parking, and at one point, someone owning a lawn gnome that was, quote, too whimsical. I looked up. Whimsical? Karen folded her arms. Those were all valid violations. I'm allowed to uphold the neighborhood's visual standards. I didn't engage, just turn to the next page. The HOA financials also reveal major inconsistencies in how the funds were distributed. Thousands of dollars listed as community improvement funds ended up in your personal account. Care to explain that? She gave a smug laugh. I have no idea what you're talking about. Everything I did was for the benefit of the neighborhood. Those charges were justified. I nodded to the clerk, who hit play on a recording. Karen's voice echoed through the courtroom. Asterisk, it's not stealing if I'm the president. That's called a perk of the job. Asterisk. Silence. Karen's eye twitched. That's completely out of context. I raised a brow. Then why don't you give us the context? She hesitated, then stammered. I was just joking. No one in the room was convinced. Least of all me. A former HOA board member who'd stepped down in protest was called up. He spoke about Karen spending HOA money on personal vacations, expensive meals, and spa days. Expenses she claimed were for security upgrades and beautification. Another neighbor shared her experience with ridiculous fines. A retired vet told the court how she'd penalized him again and again for having a flagpole, even though it followed all local guidelines. A single mom said she got noise violations just for her toddler playing outside during the day. Karen began to squirm, her usual cool composure slipping fast. This is all hearsay, she mumbled. Just bitter folks who hate rules. I pulled out the last piece of evidence, a bank statement showing HOA money used at a 5-star Cancun resort. The name on the receipt? Karen. The date? Same week she claimed to be working on neighborhood security. I slid it across the table. Care to explain this one? Her face contorted. I was checking out spots for a potential community retreat. The courtroom erupted with laughter. Even the bailiff had to look away to keep it together. I waited until the room calmed, then hit her with a conclusion. Mrs. Whitmore, the evidence overwhelmingly shows you've engaged in fraud, misused funds, and abused your authority. You didn't just break HOA policies, you broke the law. Do you have anything to say before I make my final ruling? Karen froze, panic setting in. She scanned the room, hoping someone might step in, but there was no one left in her corner. Then, grasping at straws, she jabbed a finger at me. This is personal. You're only doing this because of the ramp. You're out for revenge. I held her stare, steady and unbothered. The law doesn't run on personal vendettas, Mrs. Whitmore. It runs on evidence, and the evidence isn't on your side. Her jaw clamped shut. I turned back to the court. Given the extent of the violations, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiffs. Mrs. Whitmore is hereby ordered to return all misused funds, resign from her role as HOA president, and vacate her home within 30 days. Also, due to signs of financial wrongdoing, this case is being forwarded to the district attorney for further review. Karen choked out a gasp. You can't do this. This is my neighborhood. Not anymore, I said. The gavel's sharp crack rang through the courtroom, locking it all in place. As I rolled out, I passed Karen, frozen like she couldn't wrap her head around what had just gone down. Claire met me outside, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. Gotta admit, she said, that was one of the most satisfying things I've ever watched. I exhaled slowly, feeling the stress of the past few days start to lift. Justice has this way of showing up, even when folks think they can dodge it forever. Karen was about to find that out the hard way. She came barreling out of the courtroom like a storm in stilettos, heels slamming the marble as she went. The smugness she always wore? Gone, replaced with total disbelief. It was like she honestly believed she could bully her way out of the system. But not this time. There was no ducking the facts, no twisting the rules to fit her agenda, no HOA badge to hide behind. As I rolled toward the doors, Claire walked beside me, her grin wide as ever. You know, I almost feel sorry for her, she said. Almost. She brought it on herself, I said. Had every chance to do the right thing. She just figured the rules didn't apply to her. Outside, the word had already spread. A small crowd waited on the courthouse steps, and the moment they spotted Karen, the whispers kicked in. People muttered behind cupped hands, a few smirked outright, others just shook their heads. The self-proclaimed HOA queen had finally fallen. Karen caught the stares and immediately snapped. What are you all staring at? This isn't over. I'll appeal. I'll fight this. She spun to face me, eyes blazing. You haven't seen the last of me. I looked back at her, calm and unreadable. You're right about one thing. This isn't the end. The DA's office is digging into your financial mess. You might want to get yourself a real lawyer this time. Her expression twisted into something mean. Before she could let loose again, her phone rang. She yanked it from her purse, grumbled something under her breath, and stormed off to her car. She's gonna blow a gasket when she gets home, Claire said, watching her go. She's got 30 days to deal with it. I glanced around at the folks nearby. Some were nodding, clearly on my side. I didn't expect cheers or anything, but you could feel it. People thought justice had finally shown up. By the time I made it back to my place, things were already in motion. The HOA board, finally free from Karen's grip, wasted no time fixing what she'd wrecked. A crew was already unloading materials for a new wheelchair ramp, bigger, stronger, and totally out of Karen's control. The whole thing was almost laughable. She'd worked so hard to kick me out, and yet here I was still here, well, rolling, and she was the one packing boxes. The next few weeks were something else. News about Karen's crash and burn spread fast, and the neighborhood jumped on the chance to breathe again. All her dumb rules? Gone. Curtain color rules? Bye. No more banning kids from playing outside. That silly fine for garden gnomes or decorations. Tossed. People went wild. Gnome villages popped up overnight. Halloween displays looked like theme parks, all just because they could. It was like the whole street had been on pause, and now everyone finally hit play. Karen naturally didn't leave quietly. In her final days, she filed reports, made calls, even tried convincing a news crew she was the target of some big conspiracy. When that flopped, she lost it, started packing like a maniac, throwing furniture into the moving truck like it had personally wronged her. Then came the big day. Felt like half the block came to watch the show. Some folks brought lawn chairs, others showed up with snacks. One guy even blasted dramatic classical music from a speaker while Karen's stuff got hauled out to the driveway. She was furious, barking at the movers, face red with rage. Be careful with that. That costs more than you make in a year. Then she saw us, Claire and me, standing by the curb. You think this is funny? She snapped. Claire popped a piece of popcorn into her mouth and smiled. Kinda. Karen tightened her fist. This is harassment. I ought to call the police on all of you. I nodded toward the sheriff's deputy standing nearby, keeping an eye on the eviction. Be my guest. I'm sure he'd be real interested in what you've got to say. Karen shut her mouth real quick. She grabbed one last box, grumbling to herself, and got into her car. The moving truck headed off first, with Karen trailing behind, shooting daggers out her window at the neighborhood she used to run like her own little kingdom. But here's the kicker. Right as she drove off, the crew wrapped up the final details on my brand new wheelchair ramp. It was wider, smoother, and even had stylish railings that matched the look of the house. Folks from the neighborhood gathered round, clapping as the last nail went in. Claire glanced at me with a grin. Well, would you look at that? Looks like your ramp is HOI approved after all. I grinned back. Sure does. Karen had spent years trying to run this place, barking orders about paint colors and how many plants people could have in their yards. She'd wrecked property, pushed people around, and even stolen cash, thinking the rules didn't apply to her. But the law finally caught up, and as I rolled up my newly approved ramp, I couldn't help but feel justice never tasted so good.